Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
What up? Welcome back to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones, and in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now we are finally at the end of the Blackest Night Atrocitus wave. We have saved the best for last, and surprisingly I did not really expect a lot out of this figure, but now that I have had him in hand and done my own little touch-ups, he is by far my favorite of the wave. Now I did not expect this. I remember seeing when this figure was like teased, which was pretty cool by McFarlane, and then when it was finally, shown that this is the figure we were gonna get, wasn't too excited. Like I said before, for some reason the DC Direct ones always seem like a little bit more grotesque, I would say. But in this case, the DC Direct one looks a little bit off as well, because it has its tongue sticking out, which was always kind of off-putting, I would say. I'm not sure what it was, but I just didn't have big hopes for it. But now I know what it was, and now I love this figure. This is an awesome figure to add to the collection. It is the Black Lantern Batman, who was risen from the grave to fight alongside the Black Lanterns, which is pretty awesome. Now he does look pretty undead in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. But first, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. Now these are not needed, but sometimes they do come in useful. He also comes with his data file card. On the front you do have some source material from the comics, and on the back you do have some information. Pretty cool, added to the collection. Now he doesn't come with any traditional accessories, but he does come with the final 2 pieces to build Atrocitus. Now tomorrow I will be doing Atrocitus, and then I will try and get up another vid, which will be the review of Necron, so we could get all of these cool Black Lantern figures together from McFarlane. Looking forward to that. But let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. Now, some things that I did not understand at first, why this figure just didn't speak to me, but now that I have, had him in my hand for the majority of the day, and I've added my own touches to him, this figure is awesome. Really love him. He's fun to pose around. A really cool undead zombie style Batman. Pretty cool. Now, one thing is, this is Batman when he was killed by Darkseid and then resurrected by Black Hand. So one of the features of this guy is that he's recently risen from the grave, and you just have to add those little details to make them pop. And the way these figures are made, that they're just plastic, they don't really have a lot of paint detail. That's where you kind of lose a little bit of the effect, but of course we can fix that. But we'll look at that at the end of the review. For right now, let's look at the regular figure. Starting off, first impressions. As I said, pretty nicely sculpted figure, and you could tell that the effort is there, but I just think that the main thing hurting this figure was the paint. This just looks like a lot of bland plastic with no added detail. And I mean, for the price point, it is what it is. But this is what kind of makes it sad for me, is that if people were to see it with all the added detail paint, they would really be in love with these figures. And people that don't customize or repaint like the way I do, they're kind of losing that little bit of effectiveness that they could have if they actually saw these figures at their full potential. But all in all, he's a pretty awesome looking figure, nicely sculpted. I will never take that away from McFarlane. He is very well sculpted. A lot of cool detail and grain in the costume, a lot of cool folds in the cape, and even added little details like dirt on the underside of the back of it. Can't get much better than that sculpt wise. Pretty awesome. Now some paint decisions that they make also sometimes do not make any sense. And let's take a look at the head so I could talk about that. Now, the head looks awesome. It's just that the simple paint that they put on him, like around the mouth, it's pretty bland and simple. There's no spice to it. It doesn't have any, feeling. So that's one like deterrent from this figure. But another big one is the eyes. Now, I did look through a lot of source material pictures. That's what I usually do to get a feel for these figures. And first of all, the eyes are like a little bit spaced apart. So they end up looking, like a catfish, like with its eyes, one looking at you and one looking at the fly on the wall. But another thing was that the circle, like the iris of the light, I see what they were going for, because a lot of the images from the comics, you could barely see his eyes, like inner light coming from the eyes, but they were just too big. They were like too big and round, and it was kind of like they were trying to paint a regular eye, when this guy, it's just like pinpoint, a little flash of light. So that is something that I handled when I did the repaint, but these eyes are kind of boggly. And of course, the minimal paint around the cowl and all that is another thing that really hurts this figure. But beautiful sculpt, as always. Now let's take a look at the articulation. He does look down very well. In fact, this guy's head articulation is probably the best out of the whole wave. He looks up really well, and this is without any kind of modding. I mean, he looks almost breakneck looking up. He does have right to left, and you can cock his head for some savage zombie attack looks. Pretty cool. Taking a look at the chest, you do have that classic Black Lantern emblem over the Batman emblem. One thing is that on all the images I saw, it was reversed. Like, there was white around, but then the triangle was actually black, and the little dots were black that symbolize the fingers. But on this one, it's reversed. The Black Lantern triangle is actually white, and also the little finger marks are white. But that's just in the comics, because a lot of the other characters, this is how the emblem is. It just happens to be that the Batman in all the comics has it reversed. So that was just a little thing I thought was kind of weird. I do like the way it looks, and it's painted on really well. Really centered of the symbols. Looks awesome. Let's take a look at the articulation. You do have side to side, moves really well and smooth. You have that full range of motion at the waist. You have a lower waist swivel, an upper chest swivel, and you can twist him. Put him in some creepy poses. Now he does have good crunch forward, but he also has awesome lean back for some attacking poses. This guy's articulation is really, really good and smooth. I'll give him that much. Let's take a look at the shoulders. You do have that faux McFarlane butterfly joint with the bushing. You have up and down, front to back, a lot of range of motion. You have a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, beautiful texturing on the costume, moving down into the gauntlets, classic Batman style gauntlets. And this is another thing I notice, is that like the gauntlets and the gloves, they're just plain plastic. I mean, they're sculpted nicely, but they just look like, plastic, injected and just popped out there. There's like no kinds of paint at all. So that's, something we have to take a look at. Does have wrist articulation, and on the other side the same. But on this side, he does have his Black Lantern ring. Now, it is molded in the same dark blue plastic, so you cannot see it, but we will accent it. And surprisingly, you could see it even here, that this one has a lot of cool detail right down to the Black Lantern emblem on the ring, which is pretty surprising because it's like so minuscule, the sculpt work that you have to do to get that. So pretty awesome. Going down to the waist, love the pouches on here. You have that classic Black Lantern costume symbol with the triangle and the lines around the thighs, and you do have a buckle there for the utility belt, but of course they're all in the same plastic, so there's no separation, there's no detail, but we will hit that up later on. Check out the thigh swivel, pretty good, better than usual. Now you can manipulate the foot by swiveling the leg at the thigh, so if you want it to point outwards, you put it out this way, and if you want to shift it inwards, you just shift his thigh and his foot goes inward. That's your basic human body mechanics. Now he could kick up really high, mafia kick style, and he could kick back really high. And of course that is allowed by the rubber in the trunks, and when you put it back, it goes back to its original shape. Cock out the knee. He does have that sweet hip swivel. Double jointed knees look pretty good. Straighten them out. Up and down at the ankle. Right to left. Rocker. And toe articulation. Now, one thing I did notice about this one is that even though he has this boot cover that McFarlane usually puts when there's the ball ankle joints, underneath here you could actually see that it's sculpted ankle joints, but it still has the cover. So even though the movement is really smooth, it still has that added touch of being covered by this like rubber, but it does not lose any range at the ankle. I mean, this guy is pretty much top tier of articulation for McFarlane figures. The ab crunch, the lean back, the sculpted out ball joints that have a lot of range, the smoothness of all the articulation. Whew! This guy is one of the best figures I've had in my hands in a while. Pretty awesome. Now, I do love all of McFarlane's figures, but when something is great, I'll let you know that it is pretty good. So, taking a look at the legs before we move on. You know, like I said, it has a nice dark blue plastic to it, but it just looks like your regular plastic, and he does have some grain on his costume, kind of like micro pin sculpt work. Pretty nice. Check him out from the bottom. Awesome boot tread, love to see that. Plus some identifying marks. Moving up the back, same sculpt work. You got some wrinkles in the costume, pouches going up the back. Beautiful cape. Like, I love, you know, the texture and all the sculpt work that they did. The raggedness of it just looks awesome. Then he has these points on his shoulder, which I always love. And underneath, you could see he has like rocks and mud and dirt like stuck to him, but they're just in the same dark blue plastic. So we'll hit that up. So, like I said, beautifully sculpted figure, but not too much in the touch-ups. But let's go ahead and fix that. So what we're looking at is, we'll start off at the head. First off, I gave the whole cowl and cape a lot of matte black shading, and I don't know why, it just worked really good with him. And it was really simple just to dab some matte black and just put it in all the nooks and crannies. I would say it was kind of like a wash, but this was more like a direct paint to add shadow and bring out the folds in the sculpt. Worked out really nice. And I even added shading to like his cowl, like on one part of the nose of the cowl I put black, and on the other one I left it the original blue plastic, and it kind of gives it some depth, you know, to the cowl. It just looks awesome. Just came out looking really, really finished. Now the eyes, I did have to fix the eyes. As I said, they were kind of like boggled, so I actually used the same paint that was there, but I just made it smaller And I used, like, how can I say this? The shapes on the inside I kept, but on the outside is what I darkened in. So instead of the eyes being out here, now the irises are straight on like this, and that kind of fixed that, weird eye thing I had going on. And actually, even after that, I still hit it with like a metallic white reflective paint, and it actually gives off a little bit of, it catches the light a little bit easier, which gives it that, spooky look that I was looking for. And then I did the mouth. Now I added some red to the tongue, little dashes of red along the stretches of like crypt face that he has, the zombie skin going on. And one thing I did notice from like images is that he has like a tint of green. Like something happened where he, for some reason, there's green like always around him, like a shade of green. So I actually added that around the mouth and on the side of the cheeks, and then even on the front of the cowl, I just sprinkled in some glow in the dark green just to give it some pop, and it actually came out really, really awesome. He looks great like this. I love the paint, the way the plastic just accepted the paint. It was just really, really fun to work on. Now the next thing I did is I did touch up the utility belt. I added bronze to the little like buckle just to make it look, because I mean, Batman, even if they buried Batman in his costume, his belt would still have all the, usual details. So he had like a bronze buckle, and then I did the pouches in like a matte dark brown with some tan highlights. And I just love it now. It looks so awesome. Like, it looks finished, and just these little details give it a lot more life, even though he is from the undead. But I mean, look at it yourself in my clips. It just looks a lot better. Now then I did the ring, and since his gloves were in dark blue, I actually used like a wet black around the ring, and you could, paint it in really easily. It's really predominant. And when I did all the black in there, it just like sticks out. But you could actually see the little black lantern design on the ring, and I got some of that same metallic white that I used for the eyes, and I just like dabbed it, and it kind of filled in the little symbol. So that worked out really, really good. Awesome looking ring on his hand now. Just love it. Like I said, I'm really loving this figure. This is by far my favorite one of these from this wave, and just love this figure. I can't get enough of them. Now the final thing I did do is throughout the whole figure, and I actually got this from an image of, I think, DC Direct, where you could see the mud stains on the costume. So wherever I saw it on that figure, I kind of did it on this one, but then I also added my own, where it just felt like it needed a little splatter of like brown with a little bit of black, like it just like dirty. That's what I did. And of course, all these things, these ideas I get from images online. Like even the pouches and the belt, there was just one certain image that gave me that idea to like paint in the pouches, and I love the way it came out. It looks awesome. So I also did that mud technique to the back of the cape, where you could even see the rocks and stuff stuck to the cape. And just randomly I just like put that flaking of brown around so that he looks like he just crawled out of the grave. On the boots, I did it like on the side of the boots, because of course his boots would be all muddy. And then I even did it at the bottom on the treads. So man, this guy looks awesome now. Really, really happy to add this guy to the collection. He looks great. But before we go, let's take a look at him next to the other ones from the wave. Of course, you have Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern. Then you have Deathstorm with that flaming head, but also a figure that I touched up. And then of course you have Black Lantern Superman, which I did a a lot of cool little details on. You could check out the video, but all these figures look awesome. Like I said, tomorrow I will be working on Atrocitus, and then I'll try to get out Necron by the end of the day. I did have a pretty busy day. Earlier today I was working on my shelving. You know, usually this is where I keep my DC Multiverse on shelf, but I did run out of room, so I had to add some more shelves. It is a work in progress, but now I have the shelves, but now I need to figure out how I want to display the figures, like by waves or by character. So here's the space. I just need to like touch it up and fill it out, but it actually came out pretty nice. Really surprised by a lot of things that I actually realized while looking at these figures. I would love McFarlane to do some more Blackest Night, especially the undead ones. I know we've just received images that there's actually like an undead Flash that's going to be floating around, and I want to get my hands on that. But this guy is by far my favorite figure of this wave. Love him. I'm going to actually try and do some figure photography with these guys just because this guy came out so great. But anyways, you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.